Hi, my name is Amy, licensed mental health therapist, and today I want to just continue to talk about my journey with my own mental health and OCD. And today I really want to talk about the things that have helped me along the way as I started kind of going through my healing process. It's been a long, tumultuous, very up and down roller coastery process in terms of my healing, but I mostly want to talk about the people that have helped me and just the ways that I've been able to kind of help myself through my relationship with Christ and just through the people along the way and just through my own discoveries. So I probably won't make this video too long, though I do think it is important. So as I had stated in my last video, when I was 14 years old is when I became a Christian, and when the religious or the scrupulosity-based OCD and the relationship-related OCD began. And of course, I didn't know what was happening for those first several years in my life, and it was very scary. But as I learned along my journey, I realized that it was OCD. I was able to gather some more information online and just kind of discover more and more what had been happening in my life. And so I keep looking over here because I have my list of people that have been helpful to me over the years with my journey. And so to synopsize this, I had a youth leader in my life that I would say we crossed paths when I was about 15. And that is actually when I started learning really about the grace of God. My relationship before was with Christ with God was very fear-based, very performance-based. And the OCD that I had going on really was like gasoline to the fire in that regard. And so when this youth leader came into my life, he was very, very helpful to me in enlightening me to the grace of God and the fact that I was saved by grace, not by my works, because I was living in so much fear at that time. And that was a huge component in terms of what had been going on in my life at that time. Now, OCD, I want to clarify this to people who have religious trauma can also have OCD and vice versa. You don't have to, if you've experienced religious trauma and it's something that you're working through, or false teachings, bad teachings, poisonous teachings from the church that really are not of God and not of Christ and not biblical, those can of course create damage. But that doesn't necessarily mean you have OCD. It probably would be a good idea to do a video about both. So you can have religious trauma without having OCD, or you can have both, or you can have OCD without having religious trauma. The OCD will just infiltrate in various ways without necessarily having religious trauma. So I just want to clarify that. So that youth leader came into my life. That was awesome. And then in college, I had mentioned Dr. Jimmy Brewer, who really saved my life mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And he's the one that said, Amy, you need to eat ice cream and dig your toes in the sand. And I'll never forget that. And basically, again, I lived by the beach at the time because I was going to college near Santa Cruz, California. And so that's why he was using the beach and ice cream metaphor, which was really another step along in my journey. And then Darren Hufford was another guy who I started going to his singles group in my late 20s at the church that he was at. And he was in a discovery process of the unconditional love of God and really becoming free from religious bondage and things of that nature. And he was passing it on to his group. And he and I actually ended up doing a podcast together. He still does the podcast where he lives up in Washington now. But when he was living where I live, he had started a podcast and about basically being freed from religious bondage and finding your relationship with God. And he allowed me to be a co-host with him for about 4 years, and that was a lot of fun. So he was a huge influence in my life. I had mentioned a little bit about this previously, but about 10 to 12 years ago, I started finding things online, and it started out with a psychologist named Stephen Phillipson from New York, where I started reading articles about OCD, about relationship OCD, scrupulosity OCD, intrusive thoughts, things of that nature, that really was another step of healing for me. So finding that information online, knowing that this was a thing, this was a real thing, and had an actual diagnosis, and that was just more confirmation. on my journey. And then, recently in the last several years, I've found, just to want to give them credit too, people online, therapists online who specialize in OCD, like Nathan Peterson, Matt Cotty, and another one that has been really influential in my life the past couple of years is Mark DeJesus. He is not a licensed therapist. However, he was in Christian ministry for a long time and, started realizing and seeing that he had severe OCD. In fact, the same two subtypes that I have, which is the relationship OCD and the scrupulosity OCD. So it's been really awesome to listen to his shows and his podcasts and just be ministered to by him. And then I've also had my mom. My mom is an amazing, grounded, very stable, faithful Christian woman. And she's been a huge stabilizing force for me. And she's been able to really speak grace and truth into my life and my journey too. So that has been awesome to have a parent that I can have that with. And then friends and family. I've got a couple friends up here that live up in Prescott who they are amazing people, and I'm so grateful for them. Paul and Shelley Singh, they've been a great support to me. And then I've had friends along the way that have helped me so much in my journey, even though many of them don't necessarily know or understand OCD. Some of them do, but even though a lot of them don't necessarily have OCD or understand it, they have been a safe space for me to be able to work through this stuff. Very accepting, very non-judgmental, very open, and I'm super appreciative of that. So that's been super helpful. And then recently working with an OCD therapist to continue to work through some things and to also work through some childhood things as well with another therapist. And so this journey has been an ongoing journey. In many ways, there's so many more resources out there now for OCD, but when I was going through the first half of my journey, there wasn't as much. There were still some out there, thankfully, but a lot of it I had to just sort of stumble through and sort of find myself. One of the things that I was able to do too, outside of friends and family and research and things like that, is at one point in my OCD journey, I just got so tired of the nagging, intrusive anxiety and thoughts that were going on. I finally just said to myself, you know what? I'm going to experiment with something. And this is actually part of a treatment modality called ACT, and also part of ERP, which I'll probably talk more about later. But what I started doing is I basically just started saying, you know what? I'm going to stop trying to fight or pray away or ritualize these thoughts and anxiety away. I'm just going to stop obsessing about it, and I'm just going to sit. I'm going to sit with the discomfort. And I didn't know at the time. Again, this was 12, 15, 13 years ago, something like that, where I finally just got so tired of what I was experiencing that I said, you know what? I'm just going to sit with these intrusive thoughts. I'm going to sit with the discomfort, and I'm going to not pray about it. I'm going to not analyze it. I'm just going to sit with it because I was tired. And interestingly, that was a huge part of my journey, where I was able to start slowly rewiring my brain. And again, I'll share more about the different treatment modalities for OCD in that regard. But nonetheless, that was really cool to just kind of be able to discover